this is hard. This is hard to do, and therefore I really want to do it.
Welcome to the DrifterAtHeart Podcast. Today I got Kristian Rice, a fellow drifter and the owner of Firefly Speedshop. How you doing, dude?
Yeah, I'm good, thanks. It's good to be on, and it's good to see you again. I know we talk a little bit every now and then, but it's still good to see you.
Likewise, thanks for being here. Thanks for finding the time. How old are you? Whereabout are you located?
So I'm near Warrington, in the north of England, which is between Liverpool and Manchester, and I'm 37, I think. Or maybe 38. I think I'm 37 or 38.
So we're the same age.
Yeah.
And how long you been drifting for?
Well, it's funny you say that actually, because we were looking at some pictures today, and I think it's about 6 years, but which isn't a huge amount of time. That some people have been drifting for 10 years, 15 years. So it's not. I've not been drifting for a huge amount of time, but when I started drifting, I got into it real big style, and therefore it sort of became all consuming, and rolled it into the business as well. So then the drifting is just something that's part of almost daily life, if that makes sense. Whether it's customers or work or drifting or getting cars ready, or even my partner, she's a huge drifter, and yeah, it's not been too long, 6 years, but it's been serious. If that makes sense.
It does. You've mentioned Jolene last week. She was driving in the BDC, and you just told me a couple of minutes ago she got recognized for something.
Yeah, she got a hard charger award at round 4 of the British Drift Championship, which was last weekend, depending on when this goes live. It was the weekend of the 10th, I think, of September. But she's won hard charger a few times. She was in a borrowed car. We had other cars there at the track, but we didn't have a car in Pro, and she's in Pro. So she borrowed a PS13 with a LS V8 off of Jonathan Hargraves, who's a friend of ours and also a customer. And yeah, she went out and did well in qualifying, and she beat Arunas Namontas in the top 32, and then it went to top 16. But the battling was great, and yeah, I'm well happy for her, and looking forward to getting her in a proper car next year. A car that's hers, back in a pink car, which is also, you might have. Well, I know it's a big part of the brand, isn't it? But yeah, she's great.
Brilliant. Well, congratulations to her. I wish her many successes on the track and off. And it's always a pleasure to see her chasing and basically getting on everybody's door, because she's one of those drivers that are always a pleasure to watch. There's always loads of excitement.
Yeah, loads of excitement. It's a little different for me because I'm not just seeing like a partner, like somebody on track, but I'm seeing my partner going around, which is quite a different feeling. But it's still very exciting. But it's almost exciting as well because it's like your best friend doing really well. It's always more enjoyable when your best friend does really well. But I don't think there's too many drifters out there whose partners or girlfriends or wives actually go out there and compete and do well as well. At the top level and do well. So it is really thrilling.
I remember when I've started, it was really rare to see a woman, drifting. And nowadays, including Buxton over the last decade, there's more and more girls just hopping in and just ripping it on the track, which always makes me happy to see.
Yeah, it would be rare now to go to Buxton and not have at least one female or two females going around. But yeah, I remember when there were no women driving at all. But yeah, Jolene does a lot of work encouraging girls to get behind the wheel and drift. It's a big part of what she does.
That's good. That's important.
Yeah, and I've got no problem encouraging girls to drive. I think it's great. it's a big part of one of the reasons that I gave Jolene a drive or a sponsored car in the first place, because she drove for us for the BDC last year, in the car, which was pink, and yeah, that got a lot of that obviously got more girls behind the wheel as well.
What would be your advice to a person that wants to get into drifting in the first place? And what would be another part of advice for a person that's actually looking at moving over from grassroots to competition drifting?
To get into drifting, my advice would be to go to a drift day, a practice day, or something, or even a competition event, and that actually see it in person. That would be the first thing I would do. I wouldn't go out and buy a car. I wouldn't suggest somebody goes out and buys a car and starts driving or anything like that. I said go to an event, see what's involved, get some advice, meet a few people, because as soon as you start getting into it, you're going to need help and advice. And if you've already got a few friends, and it's going to be easier in the long run to, have a little bit of a network straight away. And also, you get an idea of the costs, you get an idea of what you definitely need to buy, what you don't need to buy. So definitely go to some events and find out then if it's worth getting into, the cost of the car and all that sort of stuff. And then if you do know that you've got a car in mind, then get some advice and get a few things done to the car that definitely make it easy to drive and easy to fix and things like that. Like, taking the interior out and putting in a hydraulic handbrake and all that sort of stuff. This is all kind of basic stuff. But yeah, if you get into drifting, go to some events, make some friends, and get as much advice as you can from people.
That's a good advice.
For competition drifting, to make the leap from messing around, grassroots to competition drifting, it's a difficult one, because it comes really down to budget, and it comes down to how much you're willing to invest, or as in basically how much it means to you, and then how much you can invest into it. Because the costs of top flight drifting is crazy to your average Joe, but in terms of motorsport, it's still one of the cheapest motorsports to get into. Make a few changes to the car that you already have in order to compete in it, and then compete in what you already have. I wouldn't suggest somebody goes out and builds a ridiculous car to then start competing with, because you'll be learning to compete and then you'll be learning a new car at the same time. And this is something that a lot of people do. They have a like a lower spec BMW 328 or a 330, and they have a cage in it, and then they think, right, I'm going to go and compete, and they try and build a monster of a car. But then they struggle for the first year because they're trying to learn their car as well as learn how to compete and how to line drive and how to go through the motions and do what the judges want to do. So my advice would be try and do some competing in the car that you already have without spending any real money, and then at some of the lower levels of competition, and then slowly build up. And if it makes more sense to buy a new car or build a new car to compete with rather than upgrade what you already have, then do it after you've done a few competitions. You might get battered straight off the bat, you might just get murdered in the top 32, but you should be able to go out there and qualify in almost anything. And if you can't even qualify in a car that you've been driving already, then you need to get better, and you're better off doing that without spending a lot of money on a new car, if that makes sense.
Absolutely. On which track did you start?
Buxton.
Buxton family.
Yeah, Buxton family. I got a little MX-5. Me and a friend, we went to Buxton. Little 1.6 Mark 1 yellow MX-5. I've still got some pictures of it, and we went around. And I remember going to Buxton, seeing people doing laps of the circuit, going, "Oh yeah, it looks easy. It looks okay. And then I went out, tried to do one corner, spun the car. I was like, wow, this is hard. I spent the whole day there, and eventually, by the end of the day, I was able to. I'd hit the wall a few times, some small things, but at the end of the first day, I was able to kind of like skid one corner, and I was hooked, because I was like, what I enjoyed the most about it was, this is hard. This is hard to do. and therefore I really want to do it. If I found it easy, I would have got bored and I'd have moved on to something else by now. But because it's really hard to do it well, that's why I got hooked. As well as the car thing, because I do enjoy the cars and building cars and modifying cars, but just the driving, yeah. It was Buxton, six and a little bit years ago. Turned up and it was pissing with rain, and it was just great, absolutely great. Loved it.
Yeah, in an X5, when it's wet down there, you got all of the power in the world that you need. When it's dry, you need some big balls for that.
Yeah, and I had a little MX-5 turbo a few months ago, and I even took that to Buxton, and me and Jolie shared it going around. Absolutely brilliant. Loads of fun, really fast, door banging all the way around in this little turbo MX-5. Loved it.
I remember, when was it? 4 or 5 years ago, when you had the yellow fully kitted NB, the coolest looking NB there was.
Yeah, I like that car.
It was because I think I was in my flying Custard or something. Oh no, I was already in the Beamer, I think.
Yeah, I think you just changed from the Custard to the Beamer.
And it got so close for me to drive it, and then you've noticed, or I remember you telling me that the steering rack cracked, and I'm like, I looked at it, I really want to drive it, but at the same time, I just don't want to risk smashing it into the wall because of the rack, and it's like, no, next time.
Yeah, completely. I remember that now, with the actual steering rack snapped in half.
Yeah, there was a crack alongside of it. It's like, yeah, that's pretty stuffed.
So when you turn the wheel, the rack just did this on both sides, just extended. Jeez, I remember that. Yeah, that was cool. Back in the day. Yeah, what other cars do you remember I've been having up at Buxton? Do you remember the Mercedes? I think I had
yeah, the C-Class 230 compressor.
Yeah. That car was a piece of shit, but wow, it was fun. Yeah, I loved it. And then I had the boost gauge on the bonnet, so I had to look through the windscreen to see the boost gauge. Oh my god, that was cool. I ended up putting a roll cage in that car, and then used it for a bit, and then that got me hooked on the Mercs. I really like the Mercedes. I've got another one now that I'm thinking about putting together for the Buxton event at BDC this year.
Okay.
But it's not a 230, it's a C32 AMG, so it's much more powerful. If we can get it to work with a manual gearbox, it should be good fun.
Is it 32 or 36 AMG?
It's a C32 AMG, so it's a compressor on the V6.
Okay. Yeah.
So it's like 360 horse, something like that. 400 pounds foot. It's a decent bit of power. Like, it's a good car. It's up a W203, like a 2001 model, something like that. Dead cheap for what it is,
I thought you might go back to the square shape from the 90s.
Yeah, that's what I'd love. I would like to build an old square shape Mercedes as a drift car. That's a dream. I'd love to do that next year.
Well, I'm looking forward to seeing it out on the track somewhere ripping.
Yeah, appreciate that, mate.
It's always fun to watch the projects that you got, because none of them is bloody normal.
You know me, everything I do is different, and it's just stupid. With the exception maybe of the 350Zs that we're competing in now, because they're more common and more conventional, but then even then, like, boosting them and all that sort of stuff is still something that other people don't do. I like to bring a different car to an event rather than a JZ in an S body or an R33 with an RB or something like that. I just like to be a little bit different with the color, painting them wild colors, do body kits, or even making body kits from scratch and then molding them and then producing them and all that sort of stuff. But yeah, I like to do weird stuff, because I like the technical challenge of taking something that no one else has really done anything with and making it a functional drift car. It's just more fun that way. And then I've had plenty of BMW, so I love flying around, missile tracks in BMWs, and the tires are cheap and the lock kits are cheap and all that sort of stuff. But it's just cool to be different. That's one of the things about drifting. Yeah,
that's why I love you, dude.
I appreciate that. That's good.
As well, one of the recent projects of yours. Well, if I'm not wrong, you had it already before, and not sure if you're bringing it back up. It's the first in Europe or first in the world 350Z with a V8 AMG in it.
Yeah, I don't know of another one in existence. I did have an AMG in my Skyline, which was the V35, or the Americans call it the G35, but I had an AMG engine in that, and that was more of a test bed than anything else, because it's like a 350Z but longer.
Mm-hmm.
And then I thought, right, the car's great, but it's way too heavy. And if I make any body kits for this car, I won't sell any because they're so rare in this country. So decided to reshell it into a 350Z, and then decide to do a few of them at the same time. So I'm doing 2 for 2 friends and 1 for myself, which is the 2 friends are the naturally aspirated AMGs, and then mine is the compressor AMG, but I've taken the compressor off and I've got Jason Clark doing me some turbo manifold, so it's going to run a turbo, but that should be massive power, 800 horsepower, something like that. It should be huge. Nice, in a 350Z, nice. That weighs about 1,100 kilos, so I am going to the moon.
Well, shout out to Jason from Clark Customs, because he's always been doing top-notch work, and I absolutely love his RX-7 FD that he used to compete in.
Yeah, he still has that car.
So many years. I remember me going to Buxton probably a decade or just over a decade ago, and they were still in the white scheme with the red and black writing, Slide Motorsport on the bottom. The RX-7 just really tickles it for me.
Best looking car they ever had, and I actually thought Jason was the best driver that they had. Adam Simmons was great, but he's competed a long time. I think he's competed the most out of everyone out of that group. But I thought Jason was just a great driver. I'm good friends with him now, and I always encourage him to get out as quickly as soon as he can. He's wanting to do some stuff next year because he was a BDC judge for a while, and he's building his RX-7 back, and he wants to use it to compete. I just keep telling him, he's just like me. He always puts his own stuff to the back and does customers first.
Yep, when you run a business, that's kind of how it works. There's always customers pulling in, there's always something that needs to be done, and to focus on your own stuff, it's kind of difficult at times.
Yeah, it's really hard because you immediately feel guilty if you spend an hour doing your own thing. And then the cost of it, because if you're doing your own thing, you've got to spend money on that, but then you can't work at the same time. Like if you pay someone to do some work on your car, at least you can work while that work's being done to offset the cost. But if you're doing it yourself, you can't work while you're doing it. So yeah, it's real hard. But we're definitely going to be there for next year for sure. Myself and Jolie out in the new Firefly 350s, which is cool.
Hell yeah. And as well, as you mentioned before with the Firefly Speedshop, not only did you prepare the mechanical side of the story, but you do as well body kits, as you mentioned.
The 350Z is actually quite interesting because basically every 350Z in the UK that competes in the British Drift Championship is using my aero, because it's used as obviously styling is one thing, but as a weight reduction. Again, it comes down to drift cars. The lighter they are, the faster they go. The faster they go around corners, the lighter they are, the more abuse the drivetrain can take. The more you can, like, everything is improved if you take weight out of it. So yeah, the aero we do is for styling and weight reduction, and down, like we do the tailgates and roof skins and all that sort of stuff. Yeah, but the 350Z, MX-5, we do a little bit on some of the other Japanese stuff, some BMW stuff, roof skins and things like that. But yeah, it's one of the biggest parts of the business is the aero, is the web shop and selling online aero, which now sells all over the world.
For me, it's just a pleasure to see some random posts on the internet of people, oh yeah, I just got my Firefly Arrow and this and that, and you look and it's like, oh, somewhere in the States. It's like, that's cool. I remember you mentioning that loads of the MX-5 stuff went to Spain.
Yeah, we've sent stuff to Valencia, we've sent stuff to Madrid, we've sent stuff to Germany. The Netherlands have had ungodly sum of hundreds of orders to the Netherlands. I don't know what it is. We've sent loads of stuff to Australia, New Zealand, Japan, America's had loads now, and we just would like to get more out, but the shipping is just absolute murder now with Brexit. It's just a nightmare. Paperwork is a nightmare. But generally speaking, we should be able to start scaling up the online, the shipping stuff internationally over the next 6 months, which is something I really want to work on. Because we have a new kit out for the Mark III MX-5, which Josh at Drift Games is going to be using on his new, like the refresh of his car.
Oh yeah.
So he's going to be running a kit which currently there's only like 3 in the world or 4 in the world. And I know that when they launch that, there's going to be a lot of interest in purchasing the kit from us and so on and so forth. So we need to be ready for it, so we can produce the stuff as quickly as possible when, if people want to order it. Then
is that the NA Mazda that Sam from Night Ride was drifting at LZ Festival in Ireland now, or?
Yeah, that car has our aero on it, but
okay.
his BDC car, like his competition drift car, the Mark III MX-5.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, he blew the engine up at BDC at Teesside a few weeks ago, and we gave him a kit, but the new kit that's world exclusive, designed by us, and he's going to be putting a new engine in the car, like not an SR20 anymore. I think he's going to V8 in the car, and the new kit, so the car's going to look completely different. But yeah, that's our aero. I'm pretty chuffed with it. I can't wait to see what he does with it, with a livery and stuff like that. But yeah, it's going to be awesome.
You've mentioned as well that you support quite few of the drivers in the BDC, and probably not only in the BDC competition.
At the moment, we have Jolene McDonald and we have Ryan Milton, who is a driver for Formula G, which is the barrel sprint, like Jim Carner style.
Okay.
Although he did come to the BDC last weekend and earn his BDC license, which was great. So he's looking at doing some more competitive drifting. He does drift taxi stuff, so it's really just those two. Although we have our brand, we have on 5 or 6 drift cars, like top level drift cars in the UK. JJ Stevens, Josh Goodall, Ian Biz Phillips. Yeah, basically anyone we've sent aero to or we painted. We paint, I don't know, maybe 10 of the drift car, 10 of the competition drift cars that are in the UK. We did Michelle Westby's car as well.
The black one.
Yeah, that's it. That was our paint job, and Darren Hoxley, and yeah, oh my God, the amount of stuff. But specifically speaking, it's just 2. And then next year, it's going to be just Jolene and Ryan and myself, basically. I'm slimming it down so that I can focus a bit more on driving myself.
So you're coming back to the competition, not only grassroots?
Yeah, I'm going back into BDC and looking to go, hopefully, to BDC Pro, and then maybe do a few events in Ireland. That would be awesome. Mondello Park I'd like to go to. And just really take it seriously, because then the cars are built then. Don't have to build them, which means I can spend more time driving and less time building.
Fingers crossed. Hoping for you, dude.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. I've certainly invested a lot, and the car should be well capable.
What would be the advice from you to a company that's looking at sponsoring someone? And what would be the advice for a person that's looking to be sponsored in a competition?
If I was a company looking to sponsor drivers, and I have done in the past on numerous occasions, I would look for somebody that is already competing because I get a lot of emails from people saying, "Oh, I'm thinking of competing next year. I'm looking for sponsorship, or I'm trying to build a car. It'll be ready." But 90% of these people are there. They don't finish the car, or they're just after a free ride, and it's difficult to filter out the good ones from the bad ones. So, a rule of thumb is I only deal with people who are already competing and have been competing for years, and they intend to carry on competing. I wouldn't be interested in someone who thinks they're going to compete. If they were any good, then let them compete for a year or two, and then I would look at them then once they've got a few years competition under their belt. And my advice to people looking for sponsorship is get out there and compete, and get out there doing it. Don't be asking for sponsorship prior to going out there and doing it. If you can't afford get out there and drift without any sponsorship, then the sponsorship isn't going to completely transform your entire drifting career. No one's going to go out there and hand you a £100,000 pro build and say, "Here you go, here's the money for the tyres, here's the money for this," because it just doesn't happen. There's not that much money. There's not enough money in the sport. But you can get sponsorship, and sponsorship can be transformative, and it can really help with things like parts, suspension, whatever. So go out there, compete, do well, get results, work your nuts off, and then start approaching some people saying, "Listen, I'm taking this seriously. Here's me driving. Have you heard of me?" Etc. etc. That would be my advice.
That's a good advice. So anybody that's looking to get sponsored and was considering contacting Kristian, now you know what to do.
That's right.
As a modification on a drift car, is the most overrated, and what's the most underrated one?
Most underrated modification is a hydraulic handbrake. There are people out there who say you don't need them, you can learn to drift without one, but I think that's just stupid. And the most overrated, if I'm brutally honest, would be alignment. I don't think that people going for a laser alignment every time they change their suspension settings really helps them. I think it's just money wasted. You can do a basic alignment, and if you're driving the car and your basic alignment isn't good enough for you, you need to get more seat time.
So I'm one of them talking stupid stuff, but that's fine. Because I've always been saying that basically when people getting into drifting, it's quite too often that one of the first things that they do is, "Oh, I need to get a lock kit, oh, I need to get a hydro," things like that. And for me it was always like, no, first start driving it, lower the car, weld the diff obviously, or an LSD, get maybe rack spacers, learn what you have there, and do not rely on the handbrake. I mean, you absolutely need the handbrake the moment you start getting on somebody's door. To level out your game, to be able to control it better, you need the handbrake. Yes, it's gonna help you a lot. And especially when you go into a situation when you drift with sticky tires, you need to make sure that you're gonna lose the grip, that you're gonna lock up. The hydro is a must. But when I see people that before the first drift day, they get the handbrake fitted, and instead of doing any sort of weight transfer and kind of really get into how the car behaves, how does it feel and how to control it just with the pedals and the steering input, they rely on every corner on pulling the hydro. I'm like, you kind of shooting yourself in the foot.
Yeah. I think, the point I was trying to make wasn't it's having a hydro and using it. You should only use it in moderation to maintain the drift, or to move, to get into the pocket, or to make corrections. Obviously, it wouldn't be like, if I could say two things that are underrated, it would be having a hydraulic handbrake and one-to-one tuition, because the one-to-one tuition will tell you that you can't use the handbrake all the time, because it doesn't make you any good. You're still terrible. But when you get into doing lead runs and chase runs, if you have a hydraulic handbrake, every time that the car wants to straighten out on you, you can pull the handbrake, and it gives people behind you a better chance of having a chaseable run, and it just makes less runs go to waste. Less of the runs go to waste. That's the point I'm trying to make. You're more likely to get half decent sooner, and then after that you can start working on things, if that makes sense. That would be my perspective on it. But yeah, that in addition to one-to-one tuition is absolutely critical. Well underrated. There's people out there who've never had any one-to-one tuition, and you can tell they'd really benefit from it.
Good point. I remember my first drift day at Buxton. I had let's just say I had no idea what I was doing. Quite shortly, within the first hour or two, I've snapped my diff, the back plate on a E34 BMW, and that was the end of the day for me. And one of the next times I've ended up going to Alton Park in a MX-5 1.6, and I was struggling a little bit, and I got one of the guys to hop in with me and actually get him to drive the car, and straight away he deducted, oh yeah, you got your rear suspension set up a little bit too hard, so few clicks less, and lower your pressures. And suddenly the car transformed. And because I didn't have the awareness of how things like that influence the behavior of the car,
yeah,
he was able to show me, okay, do it like this, do it like that, and it really changed my day and the experience that I had down there. So I can definitely recommend, if you're just starting and you want to get on with it, you want to get the feel, and obviously everything is new, everything is get somebody with you, ask someone to come with you, advise you, show you a few things around, explain, and it's gonna be a lot easier to move on from that point.
Yeah.
Plus
100%.
you can make a great friend from the get-go.
Definitely. You will have somebody with experience jump in the car, and within 20 seconds they will be able to tell you what to do to make life way easier, or to enable you to stop making the same mistake over and over and over again. And I've done a lot of drift tuition, and Jolene has been doing it for years and years and years and years, so she's seen everything. But yeah, one-to-one help, whether it's just some advice for 2 minutes or even a couple of laps or a full day, you benefit from it hugely.
So what's the mistakes that you did in your drift history?
I made 2 mistakes, I think. I was always changing my car. And number 2 is I didn't have any one-to-one help really for the first 2-3 years, and by someone who knows what they're doing. And then the transformative moment for me was when I had Magic from Buxton come with me, and I paid him his admission. I think I bought him some food or something for him to come as a passenger in my 200 SX when I just started competing in Drift Cup. And he came around as a passenger, and he was like, yeah, you're doing all right. And I said, no, tell me everything I'm doing wrong. I'd be absolutely brutal with me. And he went, are you sure? I said, yeah, be absolutely brutal. And then he ripped me a new arse. He said, Kristian, this is wrong, that's wrong, this is wrong, that's wrong. And from that day forward at Three Sisters with him in the passenger seat, it completely transformed my driving. I literally just predominantly from my perspective changing, but I literally went from being mediocre to being actually proficient and actually okay. And then from that point onwards, I'd never not qualified.
Magic is a bloody animal.
Yeah.
And bit of a inside joke, nobody likes you.
Yeah, he's great. I love him to bits.
He's amazing. He's amazing. Is there any myths that you've heard about drifting that were absolutely wrong?
I think the biggest myth with drifting is that it's easy, and it's not. But about, because you said something specifically, like myths that I heard when I was drifting, and yeah, I had one about tires. That was really the biggest one. That certain tires were really good in the wet, and they weren't, and it ended up costing me an entire round. I did the round in the rain on these West Lakes, and they were absolutely useless, and I just got gapped for no reason. And then I decided at that point to do, if I'm going to find something out, I'm going to do it myself first. And that's what I've done. And I did that with the tyres. I got a bunch of tyres, went out different combinations, different conditions, and found out for myself what tyres were good in the wet and what tyres were good in the dry. But yeah, that was, I was really wound up by that. I was told emphatically, these are the tyres to use in the wet, and I used them and they were terrible.
One of those things, but you live and you learn. You do want to have some decent tires on the front, and ideally have the same ones so that the level of grip on both sides of the car going into the corner will be equal.
If you're going to use them, then use them all the time so you get more and more and more accustomed to the amount of grip that you have.
And what do you think about mechanical sympathy? Is it overrated?
It's actually a good question to ask, because between myself and Jolene, I know that I'm quite mechanically sympathetic, but I've always said to her that she's not as mechanically sympathetic, and she has a reputation for not being mechanically sympathetic. However, she's not as bad as her reputation is. But I know I'm pretty sympathetic because I don't really break anything. There's certain, like, I've never broken a drive shaft on any car in my life, any drift car.
Respect.
I actually think people should be more mechanically sympathetic and break their cars less, because cars breaking is just a nightmare, and it can cost you an event. You know, it might cost you hotels, the admission fee, the driver's ticket, the transport, tires, fuel, you know, a new livery or map or whatever you got, just because you've clutch kicked your car and shattered your diff or shattered the back end. But that being said, I still think there are things you can do to a car to make them more resilient to non-sympathetic driving. But me personally, I've always been fairly soft on the car. I don't know if Jolene would agree with that, but
For me, it was usually the case that if I'll drift today, tomorrow I still need to drive to work in it. So I'll better stay off the wall. Plus, if I'll smash something up, it's gonna be a problem, and it's gonna be at least semi-expensive to fix whatever gonna happen. So I don't need to hang on the limiter the whole time, and I don't need to do 100 clutch kicks in one corner. It's not my style. If you're gonna play it smart and you pick the right lane, you should be able to just about do it. Unless you're in a 1.6 MX-5.
yeah,
Then clutch kicks is life.
yeah, that is definitely the case. I think I probably learned the sympathy from the fact that I've got to fix it. And, oh my God, I hate fixing my own car, because that's what I do every day, fix cars. So if I can go there and come home without having something to fix, that to me is the best result.
How much did drifting cost you over the years?
I'd say probably about 150 grand. But that being said, I've probably got 60 grand's worth of cars left, and I've spent more in some ways than most people, because I use it to promote the business and help promote aero sales and things like that. And the sales from the promotion and the sales from the kind of the brand awareness have eclipsed what I've put into it. So
Okay.
I put in about 150 over all these years, but then the sales are obviously like that. It's well worth doing, if that makes sense. But yeah,
Happy
it's a lot of
days.
money. Yeah, I mean, it's promotion. You have to spend money to accumulate money, don't you? But that's
Aye.
where my money goes. That and unsponsored drivers.
How much did you earn on drifting? Because there's few times where I've had somebody being like, oh yeah, I'm gonna get into drifting, I'm gonna make money as a driver, and I'm like, that might not happen.
No. The only money you can make drifting is if you either win a competition, which is very rare, extremely rare, because there's so many people and everything's got to be perfect, or the only way you can really make money is doing tuition. I know Jolene has done it for 10 years, so she's earned a living from that, drifting professionally. I've done a fair bit of tuition, but nowhere near as much as she's done. And it's kind of hard. Like if my drifting promotes is used as promotion and advertisement for my business, and then my business makes more money, does the drifting make me more money? Kind of technically, yeah, but the drifting itself hasn't made me personally any money other than any tuition that I've done, which is probably £3,000-4,000 at the most. But it's not nothing. You know what I mean? It's still an income of sorts from drifting, but then it is just tuition. That's what gets you any real income. If you think you're gonna make yourself a millionaire, then go and do something else.
Do you know the only way how to become a millionaire being a drifter?
Go on.
So you start as a billionaire.
Oh yeah, right. It's true. It's really expensive. You know yourself. It's incredibly expensive, and that's if the car doesn't break or you don't crash it or it doesn't blow up.
So what motivates you to carry on?
It's not just a wage or an income. It happened at the weekend just gone at the BDC. We'd done really, really early starts, really late finishes on Ryan Milton's car, his little MX-5, to get it ready for the BDC, the roll cage and the tube work and everything. And the practice was on Friday, and the practice was actually cancelled because the Queen had died. So I went and dropped the car off at practice, but found out it wasn't running. But we still needed to finish Ryan's car. So we went back to the workshop for about midday, 1 o'clock. We got started on Ryan's car. We thought, right, we're going to work on this until it's done. Bearing in mind, we had to bring the car then from the workshop to the track, so he could have some practice in the morning and then try and compete. But because practice was cancelled, everyone only had the morning. But there was 62 drivers, so it wasn't going to be a lot of seat time. The entire day, all the way into the night, all the way through the night, and then 5, 6 o'clock in the morning, we got the car outside onto the trailer, and he drove straight to the track to get to driver's briefing. And I brought the car home, had a shower, and then went to the track with the car. No sleep, been awake for 40 odd hours. He does 2 laps in the car in practice, and then on the 3rd lap, he strips second gear in the gearbox. No gearbox with us. The car's there, and he's really upset because this was his opportunity to have a go at the BDC. It was the money he'd spent and all that sort of stuff. But more than that, he'd just seen us do 40 hours straight on his car, in addition to all the other work as well. And he was really upset. He was devastated. But then Jolie was there and a few other people were there, and they were like, right, let's get a gearbox. We'll get a gearbox fitted. We can do a gearbox. Kristian, can we do a gearbox? I think we can do a gearbox. And I'd been awake for 40 hours. I was absolutely shattered. But I saw Nathan jump on it. Jolie went about getting a gearbox. They found a gearbox actually that was already at the track. So I was like, right, I'm exhausted already. But if we can get the gearbox done, he's not going to make practice. He might miss his first qualifying run, but he might get a single qualifying run. So I had to do about 90 minutes of work to get the gearbox off, the new gearbox on, just to give him one chance of qualifying.
One shot, one opportunity.
One shot, yeah. And I actually said to him, I said, listen, if you don't qualify, at least you got onto the live stream, and then that's something, you know? So we got the gearbox done. He went out there, and it was absolutely amazing because Jolie did well at the weekend, but I knew she was going to do well. She's just great. But Ryan, I'd never really seen him in this. He's never competed properly ever. And there was 62 drivers, and he went out on a single qualifying run, got a 77 points, and qualified in 21st in a single run. And then he comes off track, he drives around into the pits, and he's crying. He's in absolute bits, and that is what makes me do it, because seeing his face and him hugging me as he got out the car, he was absolutely delighted. It was awesome, absolutely amazing moment, and that happened last weekend. And that isn't an isolated incident. I've had lots of instances like that, so that was brilliant. That made all the hours, it made the 40 hours straight worthwhile. And we thought, right, now who's he battling? What were tires, tire pressures, fuel? You're in, you make qualifying. You're into the next step now. And then he went and won his top 32, and then I was like, oh my god. And then he got into his top 16, and he lost the boost hose, and that was it. But still, absolutely amazing result. And the replacement gearbox, which we had no idea what condition it was in, it just seemed to work, and it got me through. The whole
That's
thing
amazing.
It went from being a disastrous weekend to a brilliant weekend. But that's why I do it.
So what's your favorite thing about the drift community?
I think that my favorite thing about it is that everyone's in the same boat. Everyone has had a shit day. Everyone's killed a car. Everyone's had their ups and downs. So you're in this. I suppose it's like going to an Alcoholics Anonymous meeting. Everyone's been there and done that. Everyone's on the same page. They're in the same boat, and you're all there for the same reason. And if somebody needs a bit of help, you generally get help. People will bend over backwards for you, and I've never experienced a community like it.
For me, it was always the fact as well that it doesn't matter who you are, where you're from, if you drive in a Skyline, or if you just started in a MX-5 or E36 shitbox, we all equal. There's no, obviously you will find some random guys that think a little bit more of themselves, but generally you're all equal. There's nobody really better than others. You might have a little bit more skill here, somebody else a little bit is better at something else, but there's no kind of, when you're new coming into it, I've seen it so many times where people are just like, oh yeah, come on, oh, you started, come chat with us. Don't stand around alone. Come to us. We might as well just hang around together. And that was something that always kind of that took my heart, and I was like, wow, it's a community. It's not just groups of people that think, oh yeah, I got a nicer car than you, don't talk to me. It's more like, yeah, well, oh, you learning? Well, do you need anyone hopping in with you? Or there's always somebody trying to help you out. If you're gonna crash, so many times I was able to gather parts for myself or for someone else that crashed. Like you mentioned, at the track, because somebody brought their spares over, or arrange it somewhere, drive, get the parts overnight, come back, put the car together in the morning, and carry on like nothing happened.
Yeah. Do you like, who do you remember as sort of standout people in your experience, or who do you, or like what moments do you remember as sort of that kind of epitomize that demonstrate that?
Maybe mentor isn't the best word, but John Jay, when he was running Drift 1, which is probably, it's over a decade ago, he was always cool with whoever that came in. Even though I've closed the track for an hour, splitting my diff, nobody came over and shouted at me. Nobody had a problem with it. They were just like, yeah, it happens, don't worry, because I've started apologizing, and I'm like, shit, sorry guys, this, that. They're like, dude, it happens, it's okay. There were so many cases and so many amazing people along the way that were happy to hop in with me or just happy to help. It was never so that it was just one person doing it. It's just one big brotherhood.
That's a really good way of looking at it, I think, is because it's kind of everything all at the same time. There's a few instances I have where someone really helped me, but there's so many of them. If I try to think about one, it just means that I'm not thinking about the other one, but they're equally as valid. There's so many instances, like dozens and dozens and dozens and dozens. So some of my favorite memories from drifting, and I wasn't even in the car. Do you know what I mean? It's just crazy. So some of my favorite events, some of my favorite memories from drifting, is getting to the track in time and having a beer. You know what I mean? It's just crazy. Some of the stuff. Somehow fixing the car just about to get out and do a few more runs, and just rigging it up with anything, ratchet strapping the engine mount back together.
Yeah, been there.
Those are the memories, you know, because everyone's in the everyone's in the same boat, and everyone's wanting their shit to stay together.
True. There were so many instances where one of us went into the wall, coming off the track, almost crying because obviously the weekend is over, the car is smashed. Oh my goodness! And everybody's like, dude, it's okay. Just hold on, relax. Who's got a spare radiator? Who's got a front core? Who's got a front support? Right, let's get it over to the concrete block. Let's get some chains. Let's get some straps. Let's pull the front out. 2-3 hours later, he's back on the track, ripping it. And people are like, yay, sorted! Come on. And there's few people that lost few hours of their time on the track just to help others go back on the track so that their weekend didn't finish. One point that I need to point out which really kind of hit me hard. Dave Mittel, actually. End of 2017. It's not the biggest when it goes about helping others, but it's something that happened to me. It was the last weekend there. It was Saturday night. I was out of money. I had just some fuel money to get home next day, but because I had the weekend ticket, I was like, I'm gonna stay over and just watch everybody and spend time with my drift family. Last weekend of the year. Dave comes over in the evening and he's like, oh, looking forward to be driving with you because we didn't drove together and this and that. That was the time when he had the supercharged E46 for BDC.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, dude, I would so love to, but I'm just not able to do that. I'm completely out of money. Just can't afford the £40 to drift tomorrow or so. And he's like, I'll pay for you to drift. I just want to get on your door. And just the fact that it was worth for him to keep me there and put me on the track so that we can have few laps together and that I don't miss out on the last day of the year. I was just mind-blowing. I was speechless. I was like, the fact that somebody cares enough to see that even though I'm struggling, they can help me out with a little bit just to give me another day of absolute pleasure and to keep me on the track so that we can both enjoy it the same way. I was like, wow, just wow.
Yeah, that's it. He doesn't want you on the track. He doesn't want him on the track. He wants you and him on the track. You know?
Yeah.
And that's the difference.
So shout out to Dave. You're a legend, dude.
Yeah, top man. I saw him at BDC actually. He's still going. Yeah, he's still finishing his proper final car, he says. But meanwhile, he's in this red 1JZ E36, still going for it.
Okay.
Yeah, he's a top guy. I've known him for a long time now.
Yeah, so many people will see him as, oh, he's some sort of a bully. He definitely has the style of driving of a bully. Mm-hmm. But as a person, for me, one of the sweetest guys ever.
Doesn't take it seriously, and he's always willing to help.
He's a character, but always funny, positive, and just a cool guy with some really cool toys.
Yeah, he's got some nice cars.
Do you have a role model or somebody that you were admiring when it goes about drifting?
I really admired Magic at Buxton. I really admire Stefan Stefanoff in the BDC. I think he's amazing. I think he's, for me, hands down, the best all-rounder because he's just insane. I find it inspiring to watch him drive. And then there are other things. I find it as like Jolene. I find very inspiring, and I tell her all the time because she has a few things that get in her way, and she just doesn't care. She just gets on with it. You know what I mean? She's not built like a marine, but she conducts herself like she is. You know, she's just relentless. I find that inspiring for sure.
Yeah, I remember watching Stefan Stefanov still in the, was it the 36? 3-4 years ago? Because he was at Buxton as well at the finish of the BDC. But when it goes about magic, he absolutely blew me away when in 2013 he bought a 328 on eBay for £280. Within a grand, he prepped the car for basic competition. Then he went to Open Drift Championship back then, and he won the year. Against all of the Nissans, all of the Supras and whatever else, cars that costed 10 times what he spent on his car, that he prepared himself as not even a mechanic or anything, just an enthusiast, and he absolutely drove the wheels off it, just bang on.
He is the poster child for just making it work with a fraction of what everybody else has.
Do you know what was his first car for drifting?
Is it not the black one that he has, that he still has?
No.
What was it?
He started in a 206.
Oh, yeah, I remember that. Yeah, he did actually tell me that. He had a 206 at the start.
As it goes, he was just scared of smashing it, scared of the cost that would, bring if he's gonna damage something. And that was something that was holding him back. Once he got himself his first Beamer, just a bargain 323, a green coupe, which eventually became mine. All of the stress about damaging the vehicle disappeared, and he was just ripping on it. Because it was just a cheap car, so he was able to push it beyond limit.
Yeah, I remember that. I think his first proper drifting car was the black one he currently has, but I was wrong about the 206. He did tell me about that. He's just a legend.
Oh, absolutely. Shout out to Magic. I'm hoping to see him in the now he's got a white 36 with a 1J in it, and I've seen that he got it running with Matt Walker, the Catmaster 3000, and they did a tremendous job getting everything buttoned up. And from what I've heard on the videos, it runs sweet. So I'm glad, and I'm looking forward to see him out there sticking it on everybody's doors.
Yeah, hopefully he's out in spring. I'd like him to be, for sure. He's just awesome, and I know for him the money's always been a tight thing, but if he can do it, he'll dominate. He'll podium straight off the bat, I think.
Well, I remember when he was in the BDC, and after the first round, he blown an M3 engine that he had in it. So it was back to the 2.8, and with 219 horses from a dyno. So basically a 2.8. I think just with an ECU and a couple of other mods, still keeping up with so many cars that were 2 or almost 3 times the power than him.
Yeah. He got he got his BDC license, didn't he? And got into pro as well. In the 328. Yeah. Which is obviously why he needs to build the JZ now. Because there's just no chance. You need 350, 400 horse minimum, even if you're Magic.
Yeah. That's why when we were talking a couple of years ago, and he was considering, he's like, oh, should I go an LS3 or LS1 or maybe a JZ or maybe something. We end up finding out, okay, so one JZ will do the trick, and I'm like, I can't really afford to sponsor you as a driver of mine full on or anything, but I'll be more than happy to come and at least do a little bit, a tiny bit of the work to push you forward with it, because I just want to see you in a 500 horse drift car that will absolutely dominate at least half of the grid.
Yeah,
So
I'm going to speak to him anyway, because I told him I'd help him out a bit more with his build, depending on what he is. He's one of the drivers that I'd do him like a paint job or a respray or something, or some aero on the house, because he's just awesome, and he's always been a friend of mine. He always makes the time for me when he comes to books, and he always makes the time. And I've done some trains with Magic and a few of the other lads at Buxton that are just the best moments of Buxton.
there's never a dull moment with Magic.
No,
Never.
no, he's always hype. That's what's great about him.
How many cars did you actually wreck, or how many engines did you kill drifting?
Like totally wrecked one, so that it was undrivable. But I've killed maybe 8 where I've used them so much that I've just decided to strip the car. You know what I mean? I did buy a C-Class Mercedes that I put into the wall at Buxton, and I ended up snapping the front wishbone, and I was like, oh, balls to this. It's too rotten. But I've had loads of BMWs. But the thing with BMWs, you can always take the engine and gearbox out and then buy another shell to put it into, that kind of stuff. So I've probably killed maybe 10 in total. Not a huge amount. Because I've done a lot of drifting, and I've done a lot of lending cars out to other people and stuff. But I've not killed a huge amount, like 2 or 3 a year, or one or two a year, maybe. You know what I mean?
So how often do you drift nowadays?
I normally drift a fair bit, but I've not really drifted at all this year, with the exception of doing some tuition days for RDX Drift Academy. Other than a bit of that and some other small stuff, some more just tuition, one-to-one stuff, setting cars up, things like that. But I'm definitely going to do the Buxton round of BDC this year, because I promised myself I would. And then I might do some more Buxton stuff, just bits and pieces towards the end of the year.
When you started drifting and when you go out now, how does it feel when you're out there flying sideways?
Before, I was trying to control the car, trying to get better and trying to not make silly mistakes. But I feel that I'm at a level now where I am more interested in the other people, because if I go out in a car that I'm used to, I kind of do what I want, and I'm not the world's greatest drifter or anything like that, but I can certainly go around comfortably and have fun with it and focus on driving with other people as opposed to trying to learn the car or trying to get better. But that to me is where the most fun is driving with my friends. Like if I'm going to rub a door on a car, if I can do it to one of my best friends, then that's the best feeling in the world.
What's the thing that you are most proud of?
That I'm still able to do it. That's the best I could probably answer that question. I'm still able to somehow, despite all the money and the time and the stress, somehow I'm still able to have some sponsored drivers and to do a bit of drifting myself. That's what I'm most proud about.
What was the hardest thing that you needed to deal with in drifting generally?
The hardest thing is just the cost, I think. And no, sorry, I take that back. The hardest thing is the time. It's finding the time to do it, to get cars ready. It's always left to the last minute because I'm trying to get work out the way and stuff like that. The time is by far the hardest thing. Having enough time to get all your shit together so that you can, make a good go of a particular event. Even if it's just Buxton, that's left to the last minute. We'll bring the cars in at 9 o'clock at night and paint them and roll them out at 1 in the morning just to go to Buxton. No such thing as me getting a car ready for Buxton 2 weeks before. I wish there was.
Yeah, there's quite few people that finish the cars of the night before showing up.
Yeah, that's me for sure.
What was the hardest thing for you when you were starting, when it goes about drift community itself? What was the hardest thing getting into it?
I don't think there really was a hard thing. I never found it hard. Every community is a little bit cliquey, a little bit, you don't know which group kind of wants you in there and wants you out there, but I didn't really find any of it hard. I wouldn't have described any of it as hard. It was all easy to get into and the people were easy. Did you not find that?
Yeah, actually that's true. As soon as I've kind of found out, okay, those are that type of people and that type of people, and I was aware that I was generally welcome. Sometimes as a oddball, for all of the reasons, with the Polish sausage and everything else. Once people got to know me, kind of, it just showed up to me that we all characters in certain way, and everybody more or less tolerate each other.
It's Polish sausages and oranges from Valencia.
Yeah, the oranges were there as well. With Magic we would get as well the rice cakes to like bringing them over to Matsuri or at Anglesey or to random events, and people were always like, well, why would you do that? And we like, why wouldn't you do that?
Yeah, that's cool.
Is there something you'd like people to change in the drift community when it goes about accommodating others?
Yeah, I would love people to stop moaning about competitive drifting. Just go out there and do it. And if you don't go out there and do it, don't sit there and lecture people over, oh, I can do that, I can do that, oh yeah, easy. No, you can't. If you ain't competing, your opinion isn't valid. You know what I mean? And you should be enjoying it and encouraging it. So the point I'm trying to make is just the haters. That's it. You get people who hate on everything, but yeah, just the haters of competitive drifting.
Just do it.
Yeah, go out there and do it. If you think you're good, if you think you can make, if you think this is easy, lemon squeezy, or you think he's terrible, go out there and do it. And then when you get your ass handed to you, and the car drives 10 car lengths away from you, like, oh my god, yeah, then you realize the difference.
More related to the Drift Family project, which is orientated around the mental health awareness. My first question would be, what is good mental health to you?
I'm not a professional, so I can only give you what my personal take on it is. But for me personally, good mental health is being able to be in the moment, is being able to be present in the moment and not have your brain thinking about everything from yesterday or from last week or for tomorrow, or for not stressing about the past or the present or previous mistakes, or worrying about what's going to happen on such a day or tomorrow or the end of the month. Having good mental health is being able to be in the moment and thinking about where you are, who you're with at that moment in time as much as possible. If you can do that for most of the time, then I think you've got good mental health.
That's really good. One of the things I've heard in one of the motivational videos I've watched was, wherever you are, be there. Doesn't matter what you do, just be there, be present.
Exactly. That's exactly it.
That's a really good point. Do you have any as you've mentioned stress, do you have any good ways you can recommend about getting rid of stress?
It's quite a difficult question, really, because there's if someone I really admire, John Peterson, said this. He said, if you're going to achieve anything in your life, you need to be able to handle stress. Or he said something like that. But the point he's trying to make is if you want to achieve something, or if you want to do something worth doing, you have to be able to put up with the stress of achieving that. Whether it's learning a new language, whether it's running a marathon, whether it's starting a business, whatever it is. If everything was easy, everyone would be doing it, but it's not. So you have to be willing to put up with stress, because stress is what is part of achieving things in life. Now, that being said, how you handle stress, you need to be able to, absorb, digest the stress. I'm not really using the right word, but what you need to be able to do is be willing to understand that, okay, I'm going to start my drift career now, and with it, it's going to bring a lot of stresses: money, the car, everything like that. But how you handle the stress is relative to how you handle maybe other stresses in your life. But there's a difference between stress that's like life and death, and then stressing about, whether or not you can find that particular present for your boyfriend or girlfriend. That isn't the end of the world, and those stresses aren't, you shouldn't be losing sleep over them all night. But if you're losing sleep over, trying to finish that level on your computer game, or trying to, trying to impress your friends on Facebook, that stress, it's self-imposed. You're bringing it on yourself, and you're choosing to get stressed about something, because it's not life and death. It ain't stressful. I've been through some life and death scenarios, and those life and death situations have completely reevaluated something that I find as significantly stressful. So one of the ways that I deal with stress for me is this life and death? Am I going to still be here tomorrow if it all goes wrong? Yes, I am. And what's the worst that can happen is the best way of doing it. And if you live for the moment and you get up there and you go for things, it will inherently be stressful, but stress is temporary. And if it's not life and death stuff, go through it, hit it head on, and you'll find it's nowhere near as bad as you thought it was in the first place. It's always worse as it's coming up the hill than it is as it's actually on you. Does that make sense? The fear of it is almost worse than what it actually is. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. I agree.
Hopefully that makes sense.
It does, at least for me.
Yeah.
And as well, one of the things that I would like to add to it that I've been taught over the years is an attitude of life is happening for you, not to you. So even though it doesn't always seem like it, let's say we really want to go to that drift day and kind of everything is going against you. Maybe everything is happening for a reason. So maybe even though you really want to go, that's not the right moment for you to go. Maybe something else supposed to happen which you don't see. Maybe there's something coming which you are not aware of. Maybe at the end of the day, end of the month or something like that, it will actually work out for the better for you. That's something that I'm trying to remind myself every time I'm getting stuck in a situation and I'm just like, maybe that's not the right moment for me to do that. Tomorrow or next time it will be better. And it did allow me to kind of relax a few times, move away with my thoughts from the stress moment, and looking from a distance at it over a period of time, I was like, actually, I'm really happy. I'm really happy it didn't happen, because I would potentially blow the situation when now it's working out in my favor. Even
Yeah.
though at the time it wasn't something that I was planning, it wasn't something that I wanted to happen. It's really good that it happened. It taught me something. Even though,
Yeah.
especially in that moment, it's really hard to notice what can I learn out of this situation.
Hmm. Do you find that repeating the stress makes it easy to deal with? So when you go through something the first time, it's very stressful. If you go through it again, do you find that the stress is reduced because you've already been through it, and then the more you go through it, the less stressful that particular thing is?
Well, depends what sort of a situation it is. Because if you, let's say, talk about the stress of being at the starting line or in the queue about to enter the track, your heart is trying to jump out of your chest. That's one thing. It's something else, and that kind of disappears as soon as you're gonna just enter the track. It's gone. Now it's just you, the drift car, the track, and others around. Nothing else matters. But I did notice that if I'm getting myself into a situation which is stressful for me, I'm finding myself again and again in that situation, and I'm not, let's call it, not making the right moves, not recognizing how damaging in that situation it might be for me when it goes about depression that I've been struggling with and other things. I did notice that sometimes not taking the right steps, instead of me just getting used to it, I'm kind of finding myself falling deeper and deeper into the depression rather than just getting used and being able to overcome the stress. For the simple reason as I'm not looking at finding a better way to react to it and to deal with it. I'm just blindly reacting and trying to cope with the stress itself.
Yeah, I know exactly what you mean. It depends on the circumstances, really, doesn't it? That's the thing. It depends on the the condition, the circumstances, and whether you have any level of control over it.
Yeah, yeah. Thing that I would recommend to anyone is uh, try to build up resilience. It just allows you to cope and deal with everything in a healthier way and to progress better and in the better direction.
Yeah, yeah. Well said.
What do you think about self-improvement?
I might be a bad person to ask because I'm very self-critical and I push myself a lot. So I'm one of these really annoying guys that does lots and lots of things to a reasonably okay standard. Like I do, I paint and I fabricate and I drive and I do a lot of things, but that's because I I find improving myself addictive. And that's one, like going back to what we said earlier on about drifting in the first place. I found it so hard to do. I thought, wow, this is really hard. I really want to do this more and more and more because self improvement in terms of your abilities is extremely addictive. It's so rewarding. It's just, for me, it's something that has probably ruled and dictated most of my adult professional life. With regards to self improvement, as a from a kind of a mental health standpoint, it's kind of hard to say. Like do I feel happier or am I on the mend in the long term, or am I deteriorating, or am I improving? It's kind of hard to say, and it really varies from person to person, I think. But like going back to what I said just before, for me, the more you get through things, the easier it becomes. But that's not to say the more things pile up, the easier it becomes, because it makes it more difficult. But the more you get through things successfully, the more you can get through, if that makes sense.
Yeah, yeah. Is there anything that you could recommend as a book or something like that to people that would be struggling with mental health?
I would suggest, for me, I really like some of the academics like Jordan Peterson, Stephen Fry, some of the Hitchens, some of the kind of the academics and anti-religious types I find really inspiring and really kind of motivating. If I need a pick me up, if I need something to cheer me up, I don't really go to the self-help stuff that some people do or some people recommend. I actually go to music and that I love and stand-up comedy. If I'm
Okay.
feeling really pissed off or really down or really unmotivated, if I listen to a really good bit of Dave Chappelle stand-up, I just feel so different. Or if I think I'm gonna listen to some music that just gets me going, just root some heavy rock music that gets me moving, and then I just feel entirely different. So really, like if I listen to some kind of self help stuff, it's not usually when I'm looking for it. It's usually when I'm curious. But if I'm really in need of it, music and comedy just works for me
Fair enough.
because there's only so much Dave Chappelle you can listen to before you start laughing out loud. And if you're laughing out loud, you're halfway there.
Yeah, yeah. Laughter is a great way of dealing with a sad moment.
Yeah, yeah, for sure, mate, for sure.
Have you ever had a chance to reach out to a friend, or did you had your friends reaching out to you while they would had a bad moment in life and needing some sort of encouragement and a good chat?
I'm quite lucky. I've got a few friends that I've rang up and told I'm really stressed. I'm really pissed off. You know, I'm I just need to have a moan about things or whatever. And I've got friends that ring me up or we'll go somewhere in the car, we'll go move something or collect something or drive to the workshop or drive to an event, and you just get chatting and people confide in me. I think it's because I can keep a secret, but I've had a lot of friends confide in me over certain issues they have at home, whether it's issues with their girlfriend or at work. But I mean, I wouldn't name names, but I've got no objection to reaching out to some friends to have a moan about things or have a bit of a sort of, because it's just something I find it really helps. And at the same time, if someone rings me up and wants to, you know, tell me about everything that's going wrong, then I'll quite happily listen to them as well. I've certainly got a few friends but I'm not gonna say anyone, but I've certainly got a few friends that would do that regularly, once a month or once every 2 months. You get
That's
the
cool.
disaster phone call. The phone call, it's all gone wrong. It's all gone wrong. And then you're like, whoa, 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 whoa. Do you remember when I rang you 2 weeks ago and said the same thing? You know what I mean?
That's good. It's really good that you have people like that, and it's really good that they have you, because it is important to feel that you're not alone and there's people that will get you back in certain type of situations.
Mm, yeah. It's if I didn't have that, I certainly wouldn't be as grounded as I am. As I'm super lucky.
Do you think it's brave from a person that's pretty much crashing to reach out to people and be like, hey, listen, I need some help. I'm not in the best state of mind at this moment.
I think it's hard to do. So therefore, you are brave to do something that's hard to do. So to do something that's hard to do, what I would say though is you have to be brave to do it. But once you've done it, it becomes way easier. As soon as you ring so as soon as you come out with it, that's it. There's um, there's there was a Chinese proverb that I really liked, and I can't remember it. But it's something to the effect of, "There's nothing stronger than a word. 1,000 horses can't pull a word back," once said. And as soon as you say it, the first thing is, "I'm really struggling. I need help." That's it. It's out there, and that's the hardest thing, is saying it. And once it's out there, you can, whoever that you've contacted can hopefully take it on board, realize the seriousness of it, and then maybe go and see you, or spend some time talking to you, or maybe speak to other people. But it is brave to do it. But once you've done it, it's done. That's the hardest thing.
Would you ever recommend someone to go and seek professional help, like a counselor or something like that?
If you are struggling, if you feel like you've got no one to talk to, then the best thing to do is, or if you have reached out to people and they're not taking you very seriously, is then speak to a professional, 100%. Because these people are trained to do it, and they know how to talk to you, they know how to explain to you, they know how to interpret what you're saying to them. So absolutely, by far, the best thing to do.
I agree. Because many of us can help each other out, but most of us are not trained to give, let's call it, professional help or advice that can change lives and take certain people out from the misery. I've myself went and had quite few months of counseling, and that was really life-changing for me, to allow me to get a certain type of direction, to realize certain things that happened in the past were not actually my fault. I was able to digest whatever that happened there and move on with my life and start improving my life.
Mm-hmm.
Is there anything that you would like the drift community to do about mental health?
I wouldn't want the drift community to do anything over and above what any other sporting institution would do. I don't want them to set themselves apart too much, but I want them to be as absolutely inclusive. And this is one of the things that nobody turns around and says drifting isn't inclusive. It's one of the most inclusive things I've ever known, and that's what most people love about it. And just like anything, if I could do anything about it myself, like broad scale, then I would just try and encourage people to, just to speak, talk to the friends.
What do you think I should do?
I think Magic would be a great guy to get on the show. Jolene, anyone who's been in drifting for a long time, just keep going, keep moving it.
Absolutely. You've just mentioned Magic and Jolene. I was about to ask for you to shout out a friend that you think that should do this podcast with me next.
That's a good question. It's like a nomination, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm not going to say Jolene because I know she'll do it anyway.
Smart move.
I think you should get Magic on. I'd love to see it. I'd love to see him have a chat with you.
Okay.
That's what I choose.
I'll absolutely give it a go. But I know he was a little bit fighting me about getting on a podcast before.
Yeah, I know he's like that, but I think if you tell him that I've done it and tell him I've asked him to do it, it might just tip him over the edge. Or if he sees this one and he goes, actually it's fairly easy,
Coolio, sounds like a plan to me.
Well, I think you're doing a great job, mate. I genuinely do.
Thank you, appreciate it, and thank you for answering genuinely and in an interesting way all of my questions.
Yeah, I'm trying. I mean, I'm really tired from work, but I absolutely want to get on here and spread some positivity anyway, mate.
I appreciate that. Thank you guys for watching. Thank you, Kristian, again for being on the podcast and being a great chap.
No, I appreciate that, mate.
and I'll see you guys on the next one. Keep it safe, and remember, it's okay not to be okay. And there are ways how to get better.